Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Hui Podcast. It's great to have you all here again. Since 2020, smartphone battery capacity has been on a steady rise. A few years ago, flagship models typically came with 4,000 mAh batteries. Today, most of them have exceeded 5,000 mAh. And by the end of 2024, some flagship phones even set 6,000 mAh the new standard. This trend is far from over. In 2025, we can expect to see smartphones with 7,000 mAh batteries hitting the market. If everything goes smoothly, we might even witness phones with 8,000 mAh batteries within the year. In this episode, we're diving into the reasons behind this shift and what it means for the industry. To get straight to the point, this increase in battery capacity is largely thanks to a new technology called silicon carbon anodes. While these batteries can store more energy, they come with a trade-off: shorter lifespan. Now, what exactly are smartphone brands competing on these days? The smartphone industry is fiercely competitive, and over the years, we've seen some strange trends emerge. Take curved displays, for example. At one point, manufacturers were obsessed with making phones thinner than 6 millimeters, pushing screen-to-body ratios beyond 92%, and ramping up charging speeds past 200 W. But in the end, many of these trends turned out to be dead ends. Curved screens might look stunning in promotional images, but in real life, they come with plenty of issues. The edges of the screen are exactly where you naturally hold the phone, leading to accidental touches all the time. Applying a screen protector is a nightmare, and durability? Forget about it. Other phones might survive 5 drops, but a curved screen phone? 1 drop, and the display could shatter, leaving you with a repair bill of over $135. Another major drawback is that the screen curves can distort content at the edges. Imagine checking stock prices, only to find that crucial information about a major market drop is completely unreadable because it's hidden in the curved portion of the display. While software improvements have tried to mitigate accidental touches, the experience still feels frustrating. Between 2016 and 2019, nearly every smartphone brand chased after curved displays, only for many to realize later that it wasn't a practical direction. The race for ultra-thin smartphones led to another major misstep. Some brands managed to produce phones as thin as 4.75 millimeters, but at the cost of battery life. These devices shipped with only 2,000 mAh batteries, meaning they could barely last half a day. It was a case of sacrificing usability for aesthetics, and consumers quickly realized that it wasn't worth it. A few years ago, phone makers became obsessed with increasing screen-to-body ratios. Once they reached 92%, they pushed for even more. But users soon discovered that exceeding this threshold led to the same issues seen with curved screens: higher chances of accidental touches and visual distortions that weren't present on flat panels. Over time, this trend also started to die down. And then there's the charging war. At one point, 100 W fast charging was already considered a game changer. But that wasn't enough. Brands pushed for 200 W, 240 W, and even an outrageous 300 W charging speed. It makes you wonder, what kind of life are we living that we absolutely need to charge our phones from 20 to 90% in just 10 minutes? Are we powering a pacemaker with our phones? Can we really not find a single 30-minute window in our daily routine where we can set our phone down to charge? The obsession with ever faster charging speeds is something that deserves a closer look. With the release of a series of new smartphones powered by the Snapdragon 8 Ultra Edition processor in November 2024, a fierce new competition over battery capacity has officially begun. These flagship devices all feature batteries exceeding 6,000 mAh, a stark contrast to previous flagship models, which generally hovered around 4,000–5,000 mAh. Let's take a closer look at the battery capacities of this year's lineup, measured in May MASH. Xiaomi 15 Pro, 6,100. IQOO 13 to 6,150. OnePlus 13 to 6,000. Realme GT 7 Pro, 6,500. Redmi K80 Pro, 6,000. Red Magic 10 Pro, 7,050. Coincidentally, the Snapdragon 8 Ultra Edition has shown exceptional efficiency this time around. As a result, compared to past flagship devices with 4,000–5,000 mAh batteries, overall battery life has improved by 50%. Many of these phones, when not running games, can last a full 2 days on a single charge. This could very well be the first time in the 18 years since the original iPhone launched in 2007 that users can finally enjoy a smartphone that only needs to be charged once every 2 days. Users have responded with overwhelming praise, and manufacturers seem to have had a revelation. Turns out, increasing battery capacity is a massive hit. As a result, by 2025, we can expect to see nearly all sub-flagship devices featuring batteries of at least 6,500 mAh. These smartphones will take full advantage of both large battery capacity and power-efficient chipsets. We may even see models capable of lasting 3 full days on a single charge under light usage. For example, phones equipped with the Dimensity 8400 processor or the Snapdragon 8S Ultra Edition, paired with a 7,500 mAh battery, could make this a reality. At first glance, the Dimensity 8400 might not seem all that remarkable. Its overall performance is comparable to the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which was released at the end of 2022. However, it has one standout feature. When the CPU power consumption stays below 4 watts, its energy efficiency is outstanding, even surpassing that of the Snapdragon 8 Ultra Edition. For users like me, this kind of smartphone could genuinely last 3 days on a single charge. I represent a group of users who don't play games or scroll through TikTok. My phone is mainly used for reading text, browsing images, replying to WeChat messages, and listening to audio, classic low-power tasks. Paired with a 7,500 mAh battery, a 3-day battery life seems entirely achievable. This trend is also expected to extend into the tablet market, where we'll soon see devices with battery capacities exceeding 12,000 mAh. Once battery sizes increase and chipset efficiency improves, even the most demanding users will have no trouble getting through a full day of heavy usage. At that point, the need for ultra-fast charging will diminish significantly. In reality, an 80W charger will already be more than sufficient. Silicon-carbon anode batteries, the secret behind massive capacity. It's interesting to note that these high-capacity batteries all seem to have names that reference water in some way. Star Ocean Battery, Whale Battery, Jinsha River Battery, Qinghai Lake Battery, Blue Ocean Battery, Glacier Battery. The pattern is hard to ignore. But in reality, all of these batteries come from the same supplier, ATL, Amperex Technology Limited. More specifically, they are all silicon-carbon anode batteries produced by CATL subsidiary, Ningde New Energy. Traditional lithium-ion batteries use graphite as the anode, which has a layered structure that creates small spaces for lithium ions to move in and out freely. In this setup, every 6 carbon atoms form a room that holds 1 lithium ion. However, if the anode were made entirely of silicon, the ratio would change drastically. 5 silicon atoms could accommodate 22 lithium ions. This means the available space would expand 26 times, significantly increasing energy density. But there's a catch. The silicon-based rooms are not stable. When lithium ions enter and exit, the silicon structure expands, causing the anode to swell up to 3 times its original size. This leads to cracking and structural failure. In contrast, graphite expands by only about 12% when lithium ions move in, and after 3 rounds of square root calculations, the expansion in a single linear dimension is merely 4%. This small change ensures that the structure remains intact. For this reason, it's currently impossible to build an anode entirely out of silicon. The best approach so far is to mix a small amount of silicon into a graphite-based anode as a compromise. Some manufacturers have been making bold claims in their marketing, stating that they've incorporated 10% silicon into their batteries. Yet, these batteries only have a capacity of 5,800 mAh. Given the ongoing race to push battery capacity higher, this supposed technological advantage hasn't translated into better performance on paper. So, is there really 10% silicon in these batteries? That's a big question mark. Most companies have taken a more conservative approach, advertising a silicon content of around 6%. To prevent excessive anode expansion when silicon is added, the key is to ensure that silicon particles are as small and evenly distributed as possible around the carbon particles. In the early stages of industrial production, manufacturers used mechanical grinding to break silicon into finer pieces. However, this method resulted in poor consistency. Even though most silicon particles could be reduced to a few dozen nanometers in size, large clusters, hundreds of nanometers in diameter, would still appear in the mix. These oversized particles were difficult to filter out, making mass production a challenge. In laboratory settings, researchers typically use a different approach called chemical vapor deposition, CVD. This process involves using silane gas in a chemical reaction that produces ultra-fine silicon particles, just a few nanometers in size, which then attach uniformly to a porous carbon framework. It's somewhat similar to burning an incense stick and holding a plate above it. The rising smoke gradually forms a fine layer of ash on the surface. The particles in this layer are incredibly tiny and evenly distributed. However, while this method works well in the lab, scaling it up for mass production is a major challenge. Producing a few hundred batteries for research purposes is feasible, but manufacturing silicon-carbon anode materials for electronics and electric vehicles requires much higher efficiency. The process is slow, and the cost is extremely high. The breakthrough in mass production of ultra-fine silicon powder came in 2021. Group 14 was the first company to successfully develop silicon-carbon anode materials using the chemical vapor deposition method at a scale suitable for mass production. Soon after, Ningde New Energy, ATL, adopted the same technology. So, how much does energy density improve when silicon makes up 6% of the anode material? The volume energy density increases by about 15%. This means that in the space where a 5,200 mAh battery used to fit, a 6,000 mAh battery can now be installed. Achieving such large battery capacities doesn't come without a cost. The biggest trade-off is a significant reduction in battery lifespan. Compared to traditional graphite anode batteries with no silicon content, the cycle life of these new silicon-carbon batteries is cut by about 40%. At first, you'll notice impressive battery life. But within just a few months, the decline in durability will become more apparent. By the time 2027 rolls around, you might find it difficult to make it through a full day on a single charge. Additionally, given that the Snapdragon 8 Ultra Edition has made such a significant leap over the previous Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, the next generation chip is unlikely to bring major improvements. As a result, many consumers may choose to skip a generation before upgrading. This means that the flagship smartphones released now will remain smooth and powerful for at least 2 to 3 years. So, which brands should we consider when making a purchase? One often overlooked factor is after-sales service for smartphone batteries. Some manufacturers have started to offer battery replacement services as a way to generate additional revenue, sometimes bundling it with a new back cover replacement. Another issue to watch for is the gradual decline in fast charging performance. Many devices that claim to support high wattage fast charging tend to have inflated specifications. For example, a phone advertised with 120W fast charging might only be able to maintain this peak power for the first 100 charge cycles. After that, the maximum charging power will gradually decrease, first from 120W to 100W, then down to 80W. In other words, 6 months after buying your phone, you may still have the same charger and the same device, but the software will start throttling the charging power to protect the battery. Whether it's a traditional lithium-ion battery or a silicon-carbon anode lithium-ion battery, the first charge-discharge cycle, known as formation, creates a thin, solid electrolyte interphase SCI film on the anode surface. This film, about 120 nanometers thick, plays a crucial role. It allows lithium ions to pass through while blocking electrons and solvent molecules. This selective permeability enables smooth lithium ion migration between the anode and cathode, while preventing further electrolyte decomposition, which is essential for battery stability. In graphite-based anodes, the SCI film remains relatively stable over time. However, in silicon-carbon anodes, even with just 6% silicon mixed in, some silicon inevitably gets incorporated into the SCI film during its formation. When the battery charges, the silicon expands more dramatically than graphite, causing the SCI film to bulge and break in certain areas. During the next charge cycle, a new SCI film forms over these damaged spots. But because this new layer still contains silicon, it remains prone to cracking. Over time, this cycle repeats, layering new SCI films over old damaged ones. As a result, the SCI film thickens continuously, consuming both the electrolyte and lithium ions in the process. After a few hundred charge cycles, the battery capacity typically drops below 80% of its original value. Lowering the charging power slows the rate of silicon expansion, reducing the likelihood of SEI film rupture. This, in turn, slows the formation of additional SEI layers and helps extend battery life. Once a competition trend starts, manufacturers tend to push it to the extreme. Right now, we're seeing 6,000 mAh batteries as the new baseline, but if the industry takes the wrong direction, we may soon see 8,000 mAh batteries with even worse durability. The real solution to battery limitations will ultimately come from solid-state battery technology. Until that breakthrough arrives, phone makers might start exploring other areas of competition. What could be the next big race? No one knows for sure, but possibilities include dual-layer OLED displays, compact 5.5-inch phones designed for one-handed use, smartphones with 4 terabytes of storage, or even models equipped with 48 gigabytes of RAM. Which of these features would you find most exciting? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. That's all for this episode. See you next time.